Squad conquest on Fiel 652, visibility changes and more data mining surrounding new weapons, game modes and the 5v5 competitive mode. This is your week on the battlefield. Welcome to this episode of This Week on the Battlefield, the show where we cover news, updates, the community, and so much more, all around the Battlefield franchise. In this week's episode then, we have an overview of the content coming next week, including the P08 Carbine pistol, as well as squad conquest on Fiel 652, some major bug fixes and changes coming, as well as massive visibility improvements for the next patch, the usual cache of interesting bits from Battlefield 5's most prominent data miner, Temporyal, alongside the usual bits of community news and of course, some only in Battlefield moments for you guys to enjoy. But jumping straight in with the news, in terms of what to expect next week, not only are we now confirmed to be getting a new map for Squad Conquest in Fiel 652, we are also going to be getting the introduction of a further new category of weaponry with the pistol carbines for the Scout class. The P08, the first weapon of that class that we will be able to unlock, should be an interesting addition to the class and should allow it to get a little bit more into the close quarter medium range that up until now has been relatively difficult for the Scout to compete at. In terms of bugs and changes for the next patch, as most of you will know by now, the M28 Tromboncino, introduced of course last week, came with some bugs being unlocked at the level which at the time of you unlocking it, you had with the Commando Carbine, and consequently certain issues cropped up with customization elements and more importantly, the proficiency and mastery assignments not being available to those players. Most of that has been fixed for now, that is if you now go and unlock the M28 Tromboncino, but if you're a player like myself who doesn't have access to, for example, pretty much all of the customization for that weapon, including the previously mentioned proficiency and mastery assignments, DICE is actually still working on essentially retroactively granting those to us players out there. A little bit more patience is likely going to be required here. Also, in a surprise bit of news, the bug tracker was actually of some value this week because there was finally some good news to read on it. The Tiger Tank skin reward issue for the last Tiger Tank war story is finally resolved, or will be in the next patch, so we will finally be able to do the mission and actually get the reward for it if we wish to do that. Also, the newly introduced bug from last week's patch, getting stuck on the bleed out screen, is actually also going to be fixed in the next update. Good to hear on that, because that too is relatively annoying. In terms of changes to expect from the next patch then, not only would the Commando Carbine be getting a buff in form of an extension to its 2-bullet to kill range as well as the muzzle velocity, it's also not going to come at the expense of the M28. Developers have been able to confirm not only that the Commando will be getting those buffs, but also that as it stands right now, the M28 Tromboncino is in a good place and won't be receiving any nerfs anytime soon. We also got the community broadcast on visibility improvements, which was big news for Battlefield 5 and one of the main issues that many players have had with the game pretty much since launch. In terms of the changes to come, I'll save you the technical details, but expect them to go live with the next major patch for Battlefield 5 in late May, and expect them to make not only soldiers more visible, but also offer a slightly better balance between different colors amongst the individual types of cosmetics that your soldier can wear. In other words, what that means according to the devs is that if you've got a white camo in a snowy environment, that is now truly going to be the best choice for that snowy environment and not necessarily a dark camo just because that blends better into shadows. A green camo will be better for something like Twisted Steel, and other kind of more yellowy camos will suit best for maps like Hamada. In terms of the little bits of data mining information that we have from Temporyal this week, we've got 2 unreleased variants of a yet to be released tank for the German faction, the Panzerhaubitze Hummel. We've also got a series of smaller updates from the recently released patch. Amongst them, for example, a new weapon was found, the Jungle Carbine, or alternatively referred to as the Lee Enfield No. 5, as well as the Hitaka Model 37, a shotgun supposedly however exclusive to the 5v5 mode. Also amongst the more interesting things found in the patch data were the addition of the JU-52 cockpit, finally supposedly getting added. Also for the 5v5 competitive mode, logic for flashbangs, a ranking system ranking from ranks 1 to 3 for bronze, silver, gold, sapphire and diamond, as well as various different scouting gadgets. Got a couple of new game modes hidden away in there as well, a 8v8 grand battlefield game mode, squad conquest for tanks or commonly more referred to as tank superiority, and more details on the soon to be released Outpost game mode, where there's supposedly to be 2 different phases: the recruitment phase, where you build and defend radio towers to receive requisition points and recruits for the second stage. You can also go about destroying your enemy's towers by either arming them with bombs or using other types of explosives to take them out. And then the second elimination phase, which very much sounds like your usual TDM experience, however with the previous phase impacting how many tickets and what kind of possible gadgets you have available to your team. Also, a tank battle map rotation featuring Conquest and Breakthrough with shorter vehicle respawn timers is supposedly been added, and Tides of War Chapter 3 Week 10 challenges can also be explored in full details. That is of course when we will be getting the Mercury map. As per usual, this is just a snippet of some of the information provided by Temporyal. If you want the full details, I'll have his Reddit post linked down below in the description. But with that, we move on to the community. Now, the first bit of community news that I want to mention in today's episode is a post over on Reddit by KHT120, who's gone into some details around gunplay in Battlefield 5, time to kill, and hit rates. He's done this for every major patch and change to gunplay, and because of course the last patch did make some changes to the accuracy and recoil behavior of pretty much all the weapons in the game, it is for those a little bit more on the hardcore side of things quite interesting to learn about exactly what weapons hit with what kind of accuracy at different ranges. I'll have that linked down below in the description as well. Also this week we got a further community survey asking the usual best and worst parts of Battlefield 5 to build on or improve, with an additional focus on which maps work well or don't work well. As per usual, this is the best way to get your feedback to DICE and the devs, so feel free to let them know via this survey. I'll have it linked down below in the description as well. Of course, the community's been talking about visibility fixes and changes as well, and with that, an interesting discussion has actually come up surrounding the blue tint on Devastation and the main menu, as well as even elements such as distance haze being used in the game. There was some interesting mock-ups or concept art, if you so will, made of how the game, that is specifically Devastation, could look with some different designs and with the removal of some of the blue tint. I, for my part, really would like the removal of some of the blue in Battlefield 5, not necessarily only on Devastation, but also over in the menus. There's a nice concept with kind of different backgrounds playing for the main Battlefield 5 menu, which would be a welcome change, but I think most of us can agree at this point that this is by no means a priority for Battlefield 5 as it stands right now. But with that, over into our only in Battlefield moments, and for our first clip this week, we have Base 666 God pulling an absolute next level play if you ask me, commandeering an enemy AA trailer to then use it against them. For our second clip, we have Standby Luke 7 pulling a nice clean 6-man with his sniper. First few are admittedly quite easy shots, they're basically waiting for him to kill him, but the next 3 are relatively well executed on his part. Next up then we have our regular, always baked, never fried, showing us that he can take planes out of the skies even without any form of explosives, pulling off a brilliant pilot snipe. And lastly in today's episode then we have my personal favorite, Low Sodium Butter, taking care of one of his teammates for the enemy, who's getting a little bit too comfortable on top of one of the buildings over on Armada. Coming to the end of this week's episode then. If you enjoyed the show, found it interesting or entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share, and of course hit me up with your feedback, suggestions and opinions down below in the comments or over on Twitter. With that being said, however, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next episode of This Week on the Battlefield.